You're listening to the Sass Says podcast. I'm your host, Christie Rocha, also known as Sass. I identify as a woman, a wife, and a mother. That should tell you a lot already. And over the last few years, I've learned the value of talk therapy. I have seen how my inner work not only enhances my own well-being, but also my marriage, my parenting, my relationships. And in fact, you wouldn't be hearing this right now if it weren't for the work I've done. My mission is to debunk the misconceptions and stigmas around what therapy is and who it's for. Let's normalize working on our mental health and seeking help when needed. We've all heard of self-care, self-help, and self-love, but do you often wonder how to actually make it all happen? I do. You'll hear strategy-based conversations with professionals, as well as inspiring and validating stories from women who are just like you and me. Think of this podcast as the weekly therapy sessions you didn't know you needed, with a dash of sass, a lot of vulnerability, and me, relentlessly asking, but how? Hello. Welcome to the show. You might have seen on social media, but if you did not, yesterday, August 18th, 2022, marked 1 year of this show. So happy birthday, Sass Says. Happy birthday, podcast. Happy birthday to you for listening for a year. Happy birthday to me for doing this for a year. And it's pretty exciting. I've been thinking about what I wanted to say and do to celebrate this milestone. And full disclosure, because of the way my life is these days, summer is just absolutely kicking my butt. I am writing and recording this just 2 days before it will air. So I promise for next year's birthday celebration, I'll have something a little bit more exciting for us going on. Who knows? Maybe I'll be with you in person celebrating. That being said, since this is only 1 year of this show, I was thinking about how, you really don't know me so well, right? Like I've spent the last year interviewing guests, hearing about their stories, their expertise, and it's only in the last few months that I've started airing some solo shows. And so I thought this 1 year show could be a nice way of giving you some further insight and understanding about me, why I'm here, why I'm doing this, and why I'm just so thrilled that you're here listening. Last year and a little bit into this year, I was in a speaking course with Carol Cox called Thought Leader Academy. We would meet weekly over Zoom. This is a group course for about half a year. It was a long time. And I walked away with a keynote speech. But on the last Zoom call, we were each tasked with a short graduation speech. And I'm going to share a little bit of it with you now. Not necessarily word for word, but it's very relevant to my show. And I think it will let you in on a side of me that I don't let out so often. So for that speech, I was prompted with the question, where was I before the Thought Leader Academy? And I jotted down overwhelmed, intimidated, and then I wrote down, I've always known that I have something to say in this world, but I don't know what it is. And I also wrote that a lot of why I was in therapy was to kind of keep me sane until I figured it out. And then I was prompted to think about the goals and aspirations that I had for the course. And I wrote the obvious, have a keynote speech, learn new ways of getting in front of people. And literally I typed, give me the mic. And in doing this exercise, it prompted a memory of going to a Taylor Swift concert in 2015 for the 1989 album tour at Nationals Park in Washington, D.C. I was 26 at the time. I was with my friend Meg. We had an amazing time. It was an absolutely out of this world experience. It was the first show that I had seen where the artists use those wristbands that light up in sync with the music, and so the whole stadium is lighting up together. And this was also the tour that she brought her girl gang out on stage with her, and it was always like, wow, who is she gonna bring? And it was very, very cool and awesome. And this was at the time where I had a blog. So following that concert, I wrote a blog post about it, and Although much of the memories, as you hear, are very easily retrievable for me, I reread the post and had to write down some of the things that I wrote word for word. So I quote, "I watched the show as if I was taking notes for my future self. I didn't wonder if I could do what Taylor Swift does. Singing aside, speaking only of the performance, I know I could." I go on to reference a few of my other performer heroes, Lena Dunham, Eliza Schlesinger, and I write, "These women don't intimidate me, they are me." And lastly, I wrote, "I don't watch these women perform and think, gosh, how do they do it? I think, give me the mic. Give it to me. Give me the mic." And while this is a little embarrassing as a 33-year-old to read out loud to you, it's still true today. So much of my podcast thus far has been to show, reveal, and share the vulnerable and really tough stuff that we all experience in life. But I also have that give me the mic vibe inside me that I don't know. I've shied away over the years from sharing. And it, reminds me that the title of this show, this podcast, is Sass Says. Sassarella was what my high school friend, who then went on to become my college roommate, Allie, called me when I would go into that blunt friend, tell it like it is, take crap from no one mode. Usually this happened when we were talking about guys in the cafeteria eating froyo, but she would do this snapping motion with her fingers across her face and say, "Sassarella." This became the name of my blog, Sassarella Says. Eventually I changed it to Sass Says, and now it is the Sass Says podcast. And now I think of sass as a way to describe me in that I believe I ask tough questions of people. I have no problem sharing a lot of my life with you, and that I am going to push for those how questions to be answered. But I also call this show Sass Says to remind me of the original Sassarella. The Sassarella that went off in college about guys who did us wrong, that watched a Taylor Swift concert and thought, well, what's so hard about that? I can do that. In fact, I want to do that, and I will do that. And I thought about sharing other examples of this sass, and I shared one, I guess, in my most recent solo show about the guys who thought I wouldn't be able to take a Jack Daniel's shot, and that not only did I take the shot, but I got them to pay for the shot and pay for the next round, and that was very much me. I was young, I thought I was invincible, and I don't know. Really knowing what I know now is that I also had a lot of privilege. I had a lot of white female privilege. And, but anyway, I digress. The point is that I've gotten to a point where sharing the tough stuff is really important to me. And it still is, obviously. But I'm not all vulnerable and emotional and heartfelt. I can be tough. I can be sassy. I can be the person that wants to be in front of a group of people speaking, sharing, talking, entertaining. And, again, like this show is about the aspects of my life that I want to improve, change, and develop further. The fact that I have this show, that I'm celebrating 1 year of podcasting, and quite literally have a microphone in front of me that I'm talking into right now, is very on brand for me. So I, as a consumer of podcasts, I listen to them to learn something and or to hear myself in others. So here's what I hope you've learned from me, my guests, and my show over this last year. Number one, you're not alone in whatever it is you're going through. Number two, getting help from a professional, whether that be a therapist, a coach, a mentor, a babysitter, is more than okay. So many of us are out here getting this type of support, even if we aren't all shouting it from the rooftops on a podcast. Number three, working on yourself and putting yourself first, of course, benefits you, but it truly does benefit your entire inner circle. And really, it benefits the whole world. Like, I know that sounds silly, but it's true, because then this version of you that you love and you're happy with interacts with someone at the grocery store, interacts with someone at the doctor's office, interacts with a client or a teacher or a friend. And the energy that you bring to those interactions, it impacts the person you're talking to. Anyway, number four, self-care is what works for you. It's what's easy, accessible. It's what brings you joy. No one can tell you what self-care should be for you. You decide. Number five, if you're wanting to start a podcast, a blog, a social media account, a business, and you're feeling like it's impossible, well, quite frankly, it's not. And I mean that in the best way possible. Look at me. Look at my guests. We are all proof and evidence that it can be done. There's not a single guest on my show, I myself included, that didn't also share a personal struggle or challenge. We all have them, the same as you, but it's still possible to do the things. And I know that there was a time in my life where I've heard people say that, and I think, great, and then of course it's like, but how, right? Because that's me. And the but how is in this show, right? It's in all of the episodes, and it's in all of the resources that all of the guests shared. But what I really want to say is, when you're having a moment of, I can't do this, or this is impossible, like I said, look to me and go, well, it is possible. She did it. She battles mental health. She's got kids. It's not always easy. It's not always pretty. Most of my show is sharing just how hard it is, but it is possible for me, so it's possible for you. And what I've learned, and what I hope you've come to see that ties into all of this, is that women are the friggin' best. There are so many women out there who want to help you with whatever it is you need. So many of the guests that you heard over this past year said yes to being interviewed for my show before it had even launched yet. They've then gone on to do Instagram and TikTok lives with me. They've invited me to be guests on their shows. They've sent me opportunities that they think would be a great fit for me, whether it was an opportunity from them or someone else. They've checked in, they've vented and shared, and this is the really great news. They want to do the same for you. And while this little bit here is geared a little bit more towards your ambitions, they also want to be there to support you in what you need. Take a look at the guests. Find their expertise. Find a part of their story that resonates with you. Need help organizing? Need more time in your day? Need help with your body image and nutrition? Need help communicating in your relationships? Need help parenting? We got you. Someone on this show has got you. And if you need help finding someone, reach out to me. Search my website. I also have the Find a Pro section where you can actually see all the therapists I've interviewed. This network of women that I'm starting to build, that you are a part of, that you have access to, wants to be there for you as much as they've been there for me. So I mentioned that I listen to podcasts to learn something and or to hear myself in others. And so I want to ask you, have you heard yourself in me? Have you heard yourself in my guests? Are you hearing what you need and want to hear? What more do you want to hear from me? My guests? Do you have someone in mind that you'd love for me to talk to? Is there an area of your mental health that I haven't covered yet that you'd love for me to work into the next year of podcasting? I'd love to hear what you're liking, what you could do with less of, what you could do with more of, what you would appreciate done differently. This last year was pretty obviously mostly about my learnings. As you know, I'm not shy about it. Many of the episodes turn into therapy or coaching sessions for me. And so for this next year, I'd absolutely love and be so thrilled to incorporate more of you. So please send me a DM, send me an email, send me a text, whatever is comfortable for you, answering any or all of the questions above. What do you want? What's going to help you? And seriously, it's not weird. It's not silly. It's why I'm here. It brings me the most joy when I see a message come through in response to a show that's aired. So please, if there's something you want to see on this show, let me know. All right. So again, I'm just going to take a little minute here, do a little woo-woo celebration for 1 year of podcasting, 1 year of Sass Says. Thank you so much for being here. We got this. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Sass Says is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. This podcast is meant to be educational and not meant to replace professional therapy or professional medical attention. To learn more about today's show and what's new in my world, head over to sasssays.com. Thanks so much. Talk later.